2022 to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Herb, anything?
I'm all set.
Jim? I'm good, thank you. Keith?
I'm all set as well.
Barry?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, I'm good. Hunter, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Moving on, minutes from June 6th. Do I have a motion on the minutes from June 6th?
Move to accept.
Second.
We have a second.
I have one change.
All right.
A question about a statement. Be on page 2, first paragraph.
Yep.
It says in the middle there that nothing has been done was unacceptable. That didn't make any sense. I don't think that's what
That
it
nothing
said.
has been done.
Nothing has been done was unacceptable.
I think that's a statement,
It's just a statement.
But that's,
yeah.
shouldn't be changed, you don't think?
Well, I think it was Mr. Spalding speaking on the Chandler's Mills Road property.
Okay.
And basically was making the comment that in his eyes, nothing has been done and that it was unacceptable.
I think it's almost a direct quote.
All right.
So, anything else? You good with that now?
I'm good with that now.
All right, anything else? All right, hearing nothing, anyone? Hearing nothing, all those in favor of the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, consent agenda. On the back of your agenda, we have tonight's consent agenda. And do I have a motion on that?
Move to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. I'm not hearing any discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Moving on, open forum. This is the opportunity for any member of the public that wishes to address the board to do so on items that are not on the agenda. The public will be able to speak on agenda items when we get to them. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the board tonight? Yes, yeah. And state your name for the record, please.
I will. John Lund. I would like to address the board on something that's a little off topic, but since it gets talked about a lot at this meeting anyway, I'm going to bring it forward. I would like to ask Mr. Spalding if he believes that hounding Patrice Glancy and Brendan Minahan out of office was a positive step in moving our school forward. And I believe that you owe the town an answer for this. Generally, you speak on absolutely every subject, so I don't see why you would want to be silent on this particular one.
Jeff, is that something we want to entertain?
It is something Mr. Spalding does not have any need to answer if he doesn't want to.
He doesn't have to.
I mean, if Mr. Lund wants to express himself that way, we've allowed that sort of thing in the past, so.
Thank you.
He has.
Unless there's an objection from the rest of the board.
He has, on many occasions in this room, spoken to other members of the public in disparaging ways, and you have allowed that. He has most recently, that I remember, to the fire chief. He was sitting behind him and was calling him all sorts of names, and you did not disrupt that. So I don't believe that I think there's a precedent that this kind of a direct question to him, especially who has been in the audience and been a part of this, participated in our boards continuously, that there's no reason not, he doesn't have to answer, of course, but I'm asking.
As far as the exchange with the fire chief at our last meeting, I mean, that was in a discussion of an item the chief was reporting on. I believe Mr. Spalding was expressing his opinion or his concerns on
And
it.
we'll go back another couple of meetings when he decided to insult Lisa Ferrigno at a meeting here about a school board issue. And he chastised her and called her names at that particular meeting. So again, there are precedents that go back for 30 years, back to Rick Thomas and you and Kathy Sarles and Brad Sears, and all the way up through the line through the years, this kind of comments have been made constantly from him. So I don't think this is an unprecedented thing to address. Whether or not he answers it, of course, is up to him.
I have a question. Are you asking him in relationship to the fact that he's a board member of the school board?
No, I'm asking-
Or is a public citizen?
Either one, I don't really care. Either way, I'm just asking.
Well, I
if he
care.
was-
Yeah.
If he would explain.
I would jump in here, I mean, when Mr. Spalding generally addresses this board with his concern, and because it's a public meeting, it goes out in public, occasionally, unfortunately, he feels a need to respond to another audience member. And, but as far as getting back and forth between the two of you, this is probably not the appropriate
I'm
place.
just asking the question, and he's quite capable of answering it.
Okay. Anything else, John?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir, and state your name, please.
Robert Sherman. I am a landowner here in Newport.
You don't have to stand if you don't want to, it's up to you.
Well, I have a couple of papers I'd like to hand out to the board, and just so you can understand a little bit of what we're dealing with here. Now, as I stated, I'm a landowner at Columbus Circle.
Thank you.
And I have come across an issue with an existing septic line. We have purchased for Columbus. And when we purchased for Columbus, we had installed a new septic line to the street. There are 2 cleanouts installed right in front of 43 Summer, one of which is 43 Summer, and the other is for Columbus. And we're having a little bit of trouble getting the sewage to the sewer main. There's a blockage in the line in Columbus Circle Road. Yeah, it's a collapse line.
Collapse line.
It's restricted, let's say.
Yeah.
So what we've done some discovery, we've had the line scoped, the town had actually come out and jetted the line, and knowing that it's an Orangeburg line, if you're familiar at all with, that line can be destroyed jetting it. We didn't know this until we had ran a scope down through it. And what we're looking to do is we'd like to have the town take the responsibility of the sewage line on the town road. Columbus Circle is a town road. The landowner's responsibility from the house to the property line. And we have done due diligence putting the cleanouts out to Columbus Circle. From Columbus Circle to Summer Street is compromised. And we just like some communication. We've gone up through the ladder, working with the town water and sewer. Really received no response. Well, we received a response, but it was resistance. And we're just looking to get a little bit further. You know, we'd like a response and some assistance. This is a situation where a single person couldn't really afford to undertake this. We've got estimates and they're ridiculous. We'd like some communication, if nothing else.
Jenna Sherman. I own 43 Summer Street, which is the property next to Fort Columbus, and my sewer line directly ties in is the other clean out next to the one previously mentioned, and I would also be directly affected by this restriction of the Orangeburg pipe. My line ties into the Columbus Circle line, although my address is 43 Summer Street.
Is the sewer line on Columbus Circle, was that a town sewer line?
That's the discrepancy.
That's the discrepancy. We are believing that it is a town sewer line, but we've met nothing but resistance when presented with this problem. You know, good.
How many other houses tie in there, just the two of you?
We believe just the two.
Okay. Hunter?
We'll take care of, we'll look into it, find out what the history and the circumstances are as to how it got to be where it is today, and we'll certainly respond to you probably within the next week.
Yeah, and I will comment as far as the collapsing sewer line. I have a collapsing sewer line from my house, and it's just before it ties into the sewer main, which is under the street, which means when it comes time to dig it up, I'm gonna have to pay to dig up the sidewalk in that part of the street to get to it, so.
We've done
Yeah.
that.
Right, but it's, the town's sewer line starts at the junction where your line ties in, not at the edge of the street. So, just to clarify that.
Okay.
But if it's downstream from where it ties in, I think Hunter will have to check to see if that actually is a line the town put in or how that was put in.
We had some response from the town water and sewer, and that is the highlighted paragraphs in the papers that are provided. The first highlighted paragraph, section B, really doesn't pertain because it's referencing a building behind and basically a landlocked property. Section F is the one that strikes me as pertinent. And it's saying that the town will provide, it's during the construction of the new sanitary sewer, the town will construct the service connections for the existing buildings to the curb or to the property line or the edge of right of way. And we have done our research when we bought the property as far as any concessions, any type of easements, restrictions that came through as noting that as a private sewage line into Columbus Circle out to Summer Street. And that's where we're having the difficulty. We're just having the difficulty swallowing this, with the resistance that we met. We just, yeah, there really is. The mapping's lacking. There's a lot of gray area, and we'd like to bring it to you.
All right, Hunter, this will be researched?
Yeah, we'll research it. The general operating rules are pretty close to what Mr. Kessler has recited, but, over time in the years come and go, sometimes there are adjustments and alterations to fit unusual circumstances, and so I'll have to research this and find out what the history is, why things were done the way they were, but you'll definitely get an answer. With all due respect, I can't promise you an answer you'll like, but whatever answer I give you will be documented and we'll be able to say why we came to the conclusion we did.
Okay.
And then we can take it from there.
Okay, and you remember speaking to me like before Memorial Day on this? Okay.
Now, when were your houses built? How old are the houses?
The house at 43 Summer was 1972,
Okay.
and the house at Fort Columbus was 62.
Okay. So they were probably when they were built.
Orangeburg was right at its tail end in 1972.
Of using that?
Yep.
Okay.
It was all done.
So it was all done at construction or such?
And it is PVC coming out of 43 Summer.
But you've changed you did everything to the street.
43 Summer is existing. We had it scoped and we verified it was PVC upon the purchase of the house back in 2018. We purchased Fort Columbus in 2021, and that entire line was collapsed from the house. We had to redo the entire sewer line out to the street, out to the cleanouts. And then it's PVC from the other side of the cleanout headed towards Summer. But there's a piece of Orangeburg that is compromised from the cleanouts beyond.
So the orange, whatever it's called,
Mhm.
was probably the original line that was there. And when the new houses, you swapped over to PVC, and the one on Columbus or on Summer Street And that was built, that was done with
PVC pipe.
PVC
Yes.
at the time.
No, she had something out the front of her house. So her front of her house did have septic sometime, somewhere out the front of 43 straight to Summer. Somewhere along the lines, it was redone and brought out to what they're calling a private line. Was it John that remembered that when we were out there?
We've had extensive discussions with the Water and Sewer Department, and the old timers actually confided in us, like, they were grabbed by their shirt tails quickly and walked away, but we were having discussions of, they remember actually doing that work. And that was town work that was done. And that's where we're leaning now. You know, it was town work back then, and it's not now. There's no mapping, it's just very,
Right, but you have people that remember doing it as a town line. Back when it was put in, that section is now collapsed.
Part of it.
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Is there not town documentation as to whether the town installed it or not?
We asked.
We asked it.
In theory, you would.
No
There's
as-built,
no
nothing.
as-bills. We received, when we actually went to the town requesting a print, an actual drawing, we received a proposal print. It's actually not, the pipe that is actually in Summer is not what is actually on the print. It's a different, it's a proposal print, it's not a construction drawing. So that was the extent of our, you know, the documents that we were provided. Now,
And from Summer Street to the stop sign, that had been replaced, and it's strange to me that we were told that was done when the Summer Street was upgraded, and I said, well, okay, but if it's private, then why would the town have done that portion if you're telling us we own all the way to Summer Street? So that's where, when we started to get like, well, wait a second, you can't sometimes do some things on it, but then not want to do it now that it's broke. There's just no documentation either way on it, so that's kind of where we're stuck. So we're just looking for you before we start dumping a lot of money. We've had some estimates.
Yeah, I think,
So-
you know, Hunter will follow up and try to clarify exactly who put in the pipe, who's responsible for it. You know, and as he said, it may not be the answer you want, but at least hopefully we can clarify that.
Appreciate it.
So, and that's
Okay.
the best we can do here.
Yeah, it'll take a week or 10 days, something like that.
Okay.
A little short-handed right now, but we'll get to you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Coming in.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anyone else for open forum tonight? Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Fritz Spalding Sr., and I will answer Mr. Lund's query. Yes to both. And as to my history, I think it is very clear. I have been involved since the 80s and will continue to do what I think is right for this community. And I sit here with Jim Burrows, and you had a town manager here that wanted to search cars going out the parking lot with no probable cause.
Not me.
That's right. And I came to speak on that quite strongly, on how illegal and it should not be done. And then he left. And then we can talk about Sussman, the superintendent, who didn't have the annual report ready in time. And I asked him to get documents there, and he wouldn't bring documents there. Took it to court, and they overturned the meeting, and we had to redo it in May. So if those bother Mr. Lund, he's going to be bothered until I die. Because I will stay here in the forefront of all of the issues that I perceive are wrong for the community. And in the case of Mr. Menahan, he was here 3 years. we dropped 20 points to the very bottom possible in his 3-year tenure. That is significant. He had the opportunity to go up. Didn't address it with the board at all in that time period. And then when I bring it up, it's a travesty. Shut up, Mr. Spaulding. The sanitization or the hiding is like Nixon. I mean, everything that came out was wrong. And they've had 2 meetings to fry Bert, and out of 200 and some odd employees, they had about 10 the first time, I'm estimating. So I think it is clear that some of the teachers recognize that being at 211 is not satisfactory. Would it be satisfactory to have children in your class that fail and it is covered? The parent doesn't know. We are the parent of the school system. And when I tried to make it public, up comes the furor. And that's fine. It really is fine. Because now we will discuss it. And now as adults and as a community, we can make an education decision of what we want to do. I said I wanted it first on every agenda until we came up with a solution to find out and figure out what was going on and what we could do. I asked the following question: what are the problems? Parents, if we've got parental problems, meaning something needs to be done, we need to do what needs to be done. I even went as far as to say, if it's food at home, we need to solve it. As a school district, we need to solve it. So, that all being said, the whole show comes down to whether we want to recognize and put up front that we have a problem and solve it. And that's where I am. Get it in the forefront, talk about it, make it happen. Because it is very important to the community. It's not only important to the group of children that come and enter the first grade or kindergarten every year. Yes, it is important. But it is important when someone looks at real estate and wants to come to Newport, maybe, and looks at 211 and they have children, does it affect their psyche or their thoughts on what they buy, if they buy? What does that mean? If in fact we will not recognize the plight of these young children coming into the system and cure it, and we will allow this bad educational reputation of 211 to stay with us, it is a boat with an anchor that is out and somebody's pushing the oars. You've got to remove the anchor. You've got to solve the problem. You've got to educate the children, period. Next was testing. They don't want to take the test. They don't like the test. We've got to switch that. Give them some sort of reward. They talked about giving rewards, but then they beat it up and can't do that. I use the example. The mother says to the young child, if you go make your bed, we'll go to the beach today. Does the bed get made? In a hurry. It doesn't work. We need to find out what our problems are, and then we need to concentrate on fixing them. And if that bothers Mr. Lund, then he's going to be bothered for a long time. Because I have absolutely no sense at all of backing up when in fact the entire crowd that came is talking about Bert, who raised the issue and wants to put it in the forefront. Are they all the ones that want to hide it? Are they the ones who got us to where we are? I should think every one of them would come in and say, we've got to do something better than what we've done. We've got to find a way. Some other town, school district was at our position. Okay? What did they do to raise themselves up? All right, you can look back at the testing years and figure out who was there. And then you can look at them from where they were bad here to where they were different here. Where did they come up? How did they do it? What did they do? What did it cost? I can't ask those questions of a superintendent of another district, but our superintendent could have. So all of that comes to light now, thanks to Mr. Lund opening the door for me to answer his question. Again, he wants to shoot the messenger, not fix the problem. I want to see the problem fixed. Now, going from there to you, Mr. Kessler, I thank you and this board for the opportunity for everybody to come and speak, because that is what we are built on as a country, is that right to speak freely. And that has happened here. It didn't at first. I can remember the camera, I can remember the arrest, I can remember the federal court cases and etc. Boy, Jim, haven't we come a long way.
I think Jim was still in high school when some of that happened.
Yes, yes, and all of that being said, Mr. Spalding couldn't speak. Mr. Spalding was doing this. Mr. Spalding was doing this. But now we are doing this, which is free and open discussion. The people that came tonight to talk about their problem came freely. So if in fact Mr. Lund thinks what he thinks of me, I care less. That is his thoughts. It is his lack of understanding. When he and I were here on the board, the Pledge of Allegiance came in. If you go back to the minutes, it came up for a vote whether we're going to pledge the allegiance or not. John Long calls me on the phone, and Bert, I don't want to do it. I said, well, you're all right with that. I voted for the pledge, and I have no problem pledging to the flag. But John does, or did. So there's a lot of history here, going back a lot of years. It is up to the community out there to decide whether I'm an asset or a liability. That being said, I really don't care. What I care is the issues get brought forward, discussed, whether they affect me or not, or any other person. I have had so many people call me with this, that, and the other thing. And I do my best to direct them how to get something done, if they need be. And if they can't speak for themselves, sometimes I speak for them. And I have done it, as I said, for a long time. And if he thinks I'm going to stop, he's delusional. Now I look at a new superintendent coming in. I have great hopes. We also will replace I hope, the aura of education, particularly in the elementary, to the point where a teacher wants to be there. If you're a second grade teacher and the student comes to you without adequate education, you've got a larger problem. If you're a third grade teacher and a student comes to you that doesn't know the alphabet, you've got a problem. If a teacher in the middle school has a problem, wow. Where do we stop? Now we're talking now about elementary. The middle school is not much different. Out of 125, we're 123. We only got to go 2 more places to be at the bottom. But the high school is fine. It's there in the mids. So somewhere along there, either the children are leaving, or we're finding a way to educate them, or they're catching up. Whatever it is, we need to look at this. We need to figure it out. And to keep it in the closet and be silent about it is unacceptable. And that unacceptable means that if you're the superintendent and you cannot and will not answer the questions that need to be answered, then you need to go. And that is firm and it's happening. And I am absolutely yes to that. And Patrice did, I said an hour, you said 2. Where were the facts? How much it was going to cost was an estimated number. Who had success with this? How is it done? Are we going to use these children as lab rats to figure out what is right and what is not? There's got to be somebody in Alabama, somewhere, somebody in North Dakota who's been similarly down and brought it up. There's got to be somebody. We've got to find it. We cannot have these children enter and go through our system poorly educated and spend the money that we're spending. So that all being said, thank you, Mr. Lund, for opening the window, and I will continue to be an asshole as long as he thinks that I am one. Thank you, Jack.
Anything else?
No, that's enough.
Anyone else for public forum? Moving on. What's Selectmen? Barry, anything?
Well, I do want to comment, I've had a couple of conversations with people who play disc frisbee. They call it golf. I have a hard time with that, but anyway. They just think that this is one of the best courses around. And I'm talking about guys that play a lot of different courses. The young man in Sunapee, one of the top disc golf players in the state. And he comes over here and he said, it's very good. So it's something we should be proud of. That, you know, people that I don't know anything, I can throw a frisbee and it might go to you, might not. But these guys, they know the job. They know what has to be done. And they really think that's a nice situation up there. So compliments to, was it the rec? Yeah, did that, and job well done.
In a year or so, I remember being out, by the football field or a parking lot a few times Sunday mornings, and a couple cars would come in with Vermont plates and all. They'd be
Yeah, a lot of people,
going out there.
These are people that don't live in town, but they like this.
Disc golf, no carts.
I've gone to a full car now, so I'm not riding.
Anything else? Barry?
I'm all set, thank you.
Keith?
I'm all set.
Jim?
Nothing for me.
Herb? I just want to comment, this past weekend, the Library Arts Center had their mural event on the Common. They had a couple dozen artists up there working on sections of the new mural that will be going up on the side of the Johnson Block, the fitness center down there on Main Street. It was a bit chilly, but they were working on their panels and quite enthusiastic about it. And at the other end of the Common, we had the Chamber had their brew fest, and a couple of people I talked to said they really enjoyed that. And I walked through that, looked like some good people there. Somehow, someone sold me the ticket that wasn't the winner for the donkey drop.
Who did that?
But,
Did I win? Who did that?
It,
Yeah, but you weren't there, so they gave you somebody.
I think it's good to see that people are, once again, we're getting out and getting together as a community. I think that's important. Part of what makes Newport important. So, just glad to see that. And I guess this weekend there's a car show up at the airport on Saturday. I'm not sure who that benefits, but there's probably stuff available online or somewhere like that. That's like 10 to 2 or something.
Yeah, it's a chamber program.
Chamber of Commerce?
Yep.
So that certainly should be another event, probably. Is it at the airport or up by the bridge? Where they're
It's
holding
on
it?
the airport, on the grassy runway, I guess as they refer to it.
Okay, the turf runway. So it's sort of alongside.
Grassy knoll, grassy runway.
Yeah, alongside Corbin Road there, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's good to see those events, we're doing those events now. And that's all I have. Hunter, anything?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, moving on, informational. Enforcement update. All right.
So, Mr. Chair, in response to last week's conversation, I thought that perhaps the best way for you to get a handle on what we're doing is to talk to the two folks that are primarily involved in that.
Yep.
I would like to set the context here is that, in the past, there's been little or nothing done in terms of zoning enforcement. And I'm really quite pleased with our health officer and our zoning officer administrator, that they're learning about what the problem is. They've done a lot of documentation. They've spent a lot of time visiting a lot of properties. They've got quite a list of issues and locations to deal with, and they have been steadily but diligently working with a lot of folks throughout the community. There are a lot more that get resolved without litigation that you never hear about, but there are a handful of people that require judicial intervention, if you will, and I've been quite impressed and pleased that we have been very successful in not only winning the case, but having the judge approve things like penalties, attorney's fees, and giving us the ability to enter the property, which is quite exceptional, and to correct some of these issues at our expense and to take a lien on the property for those costs. So that's pretty much a trifecta when it comes to those kinds of enforcement efforts. And so they're here to talk with you and to give you kind of an overview as to what has been done to date. There's no question that there's a lot more to go, but we have done the best we can with our budgets and with the manpower and timing allowed. And so we're chugging along, and I think they're making good progress. So with the chairman's permission, I'll turn it over to Christina and Steve to give you a 1,000-foot overview.
Go for it.
Well, if I could say something first, and I really apologize if this is the case. I believe you may be missing page 2 of my pamphlet. And if you get to mine, after you see it says P and Z procedures, it doesn't end right here. Process, do you have page 2 that goes through? No, you're all missing page 2. I apologize.
So while Christina is handing that out, I will note that I did have a discussion with the attorney that we use for our court appearances, and he was a little bit, he was preoccupied with tonight with another meeting.
I apologize.
He did volunteer to have another attorney,
No, keep going.
another attorney zoom in, but I'm pretty sure that Christina and Steve will be able to answer all your questions, and we want to avoid the extra cost of
There, it's the
having an attorney on the other end of a Zoom call that he or she probably wouldn't have been able to add much to, so we kind of avoided that.
I think we're fine at this point,
Right.
without the need to bring in any sort of legal counsel on it.
Right.
Just general procedures and updates.
Okay, well, they're certainly capable of giving you that help.
Did everybody got a copy of this?
They should have.
Yeah. So what I did here is I kind of outlined all the inspections I do, both on fire and health, and then there are ones that Christina and I, through planning and zoning and the building department, do together. So a lot of times when I go out to do these, I'm doing both fire and health at the same time, if it's required. So just to kind of summarize it out, I do, like it says here, all the assembly occupancies, which include all your, any place that has a liquor license, any assembly occupancy like a gymnasium or the opera house as an example, they all get inspected. Now, like the gyms at the school get a separate assembly permit, but that's done in conjunction with the school safety inspection that I do every October. So everything kind of runs, so there's some inspections that are done together. And that moves into the school inspections. I do annually at every school in town, and the private ones also, and it has to be done while the school's in session. And there's a state form that I fill out that I electronically submit to the state that goes into the state database, and then I print out that form and I deliver that to the school. It's supposed to go to the superintendent, and what it does, I give it to the building and maintenance person or the principal, and then they disseminate it out to the superintendent. And there is a way to go on that database to look back at the school, the inspections that were done previously. So we do that, I do that every year annually, so. Daycare inspections. Daycare inspections are required to be inspected every 3 years. So we have, right now we have 13 daycares in town, and these include home daycares, so they're all on a different cycle. So what happens, the way that the inspection's triggered for that is that when the daycare provider license is getting ready to be renewed, they'll contact me and I'll come out and do the fire and health inspection for them. Then they submit, I fill out their the paperwork the state gives them, they send the paperwork in, the state reviews it, and the state then sends them a license, and they send me a copy of the license, which I keep in a file over at the fire station. Foster care inspections. These are, foster care inspections are basically like a, I don't want to say at will, but they're by request. So if somebody is going to be a foster parent for a child, the state has another form that they need to have filled out that I have to come out and inspect their property. We have, it fluctuates, there's like 10 or 15 foster care families in town. So sometimes they're licensed for 2 years, and then sometimes they don't renew if they're not a foster care family anymore. So that's just triggered by a phone call to me to come out and inspect the property. The multifamily rental property inspections, by fire code, the rental housing RSA, I can inspect all common areas of any multifamily dwelling for fire protection, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, proper exiting. While I'm in there, I can look at the overall condition of the building in the common areas. I'm not permitted to go into an apartment unless I feel a complaint from the tenant, and the tenant allows me to go in. If the tenant, if I feel a complaint from a tenant, I'll go into the apartment, I'll address their complaint and see what the complaint is. If it's an immediate health or life problem, for example, the most common one is a missing smoke detector. I have battery-operated smoke detectors that I can install so that they at least have fire protection. And then, when that happens, I write a letter or contact the property owner to request to do an inspection of the overall property, just to make sure that everything's up to code. If one's missing, a lot of times when I talk to the landlord, I find out that that tenant has taken smoke detectors down, or there's been a dispute, or something like that. So, and those are generally by complaint. So usually what the way that triggers is that I'll get a complaint from a tenant that something's wrong with an apartment. And I ask a couple questions before I even get into what the problem is. I ask how long they've lived there, how long the problem has existed, and whether or not they're current on rent. A lot of times I get, well, I've lived here for 3 years, the problem's been here for 3 years, and now I'm behind on my rent. So I've been served with an eviction paper. So this has triggered them calling me to say, now there's a problem with the apartment. So I contact the property owner and landlord, and I get that side of the story. Then I do go out and inspect the property. And I remind property owners and tenants that withholding of rent in lieu of repairs, can't do that, and you can't not make a repair if you're not getting the rent. You still got to maintain safety of the building. So a lot of times that's rectified. I'll rectify the safety issues, but it doesn't solve a lot of times the tenant's issue of being evicted or whatever. I can't control that. I can only make sure the building's safe. So some of the health issues that I deal with. Well, lead paint complaints. So I deal with lead paint complaints mainly from the state. So as the health officer, my role is to identify potential lead hazards in buildings. So if I'm in an apartment building, I see flaking paint, I can contact the state if I suspect that there's lead, or if the tenant or somebody reports that their children have elevated lead in their blood. I work with the DHHS on investigating. If they need me to go in to assist them, I can do that. Just do education of lead poisoning and what the symptoms are. and good lead-safe work practices. So if someone has a place that's in the lead abatement program, that they're abating the lead in the building, I can go out, if the state requests me, to make sure that they have the proper protections and precautions while they're doing that abatement. So the lead enforcement mainly comes from the state side of things. And the way it's triggered a lot of times is that a person will take their child to a pediatrician or doctor, and they do a blood test, and the child has elevated lead in the blood. Then that reports back to where they live, and the state makes a reporting then to the property owner, and then that's how it works. And the state then comes out and does the investigations. I'm merely a liaison between them, property owners, tenants, just to make sure that everything's getting done.
Steve, just for clarification, once a child, is tested and has elevated levels of lead, it's almost too late. I mean, it's like a lifetime level. Am I correct there? I mean, it's not like you remove the lead from the environment and the lead in the child goes down.
Yeah, and Jeff, I'm not sure how that works after the fact. That's unfortunately the identifier that they use when they start looking at lead.
But the key is to eliminate the lead ahead.
Eliminate the lead, the source of the lead. I do know that once a child is identified with, the reportable level of lead in their bloodstream, they're required to be removed from that property. So we're currently dealing with one up on Summer Street. So, and that was triggered by a different type of complaint. So, some other things, health issue-wise, just public health nuisances. These types of complaints are not limited to trash and garbage complaints, but unsanitary living conditions in rental properties. As a health officer, I have a very limited jurisdiction of owner-occupied structures. So if you have if you're owner-occupied building that you live in, and it is it's a dump, I have virtually zero authority to go in and tell you to clean the property up. Your house. I can't do it. So I can make referrals. So what a lot of times happen, we had one on a street down here, I won't mention the street address, but we had one where we went for a medical call. And when the ambulance crew got back, they notified me that the house was basically unsanitary. And they had a child living there that had breathing problems. So I was able to go in and I requested to inspect the building, and they let me in and I looked at it. And then I was able to hook them up with assistance through like Service Link and New Hampshire Southwest Community Services to get their property cleaned up, to get the building inside cleaned up, to make it sanitary for the children. So that kind of dovetail. So I get a lot of that I deal with that kind of stuff. But really, an owner-occupied structure inside, I can't really do anything. Insects and rodent problems. I'm dealing with one right now on another street that has a rat problem. So it was reported to me through the VNA. So then I contacted the property owner. The property owner informed me that he knew about the problem, and he had already contracted with a pest control company to take care of the issue. So once I make the notification and the property owner says I've already taken care of this and I got the contract for them to do this, then I basically close the file on the building because the property owner has told me they're taking care of it. Most of these issues, I typically deal with 2 to 3 complaints a week on all sorts of things, overflowing dumpsters, things like that. And most of the issues are resolved by a simple phone call or a visit to the site. So I go out, hey, you got to clean your dumpster up. I know they're coming on Friday, okay. I go back out on Monday and the dumpster's empty. So the issue's been taken care of. And the way I document those is I just put memos to files. I have a memo to file that I put in, and then I document it under the property. And I also have a paper file that I put in my files at the station. So if I get a call from an address that maybe kind of, wait a minute, I think I've been there before, I can go into my electronically and look and say, oh, I was there 2 years ago for your dumpster being overfull, and now it's overfull again. So that's how I document those kind of things. Septic system inspections and complaints. These are usually triggered by a complaint. It's usually from a neighbor that says, hey, I smell sewage. What I do is I go out to the property, I do a street view and basically see if I can smell it. And if I can smell it, then I visit with the property owner. And I ask them for documentation on the last time the system was serviced. And if the system is found to be failed, and the owner is non-compliant with repair, an order can be filed with the court for them to repair it. We haven't had to go that far with septic system failures. Usually, once you go out, people know their septic system has failed, and they've already either arranged to get it taken care of, or they're in the process of doing that. Foodborne illness complaints. These are basically, somebody says, I ate too much food over here, 6 or 7 people have gotten sick, and I get a complaint for that or a report of that. I call DHHS, and then they handle it through their restaurant inspection and licensing bureau. Communicable diseases and pandemics. I think we all are well aware of how that works, and we just went through it. Basically, the liaison between the state and the public and the town. Rabies is another one. I get notified of all rabies cases in town. Especially, we just had one, I think it was a raccoon from somewhere, and they notify us that there was a case of rabies. And all we basically do with that is we monitor, you monitor the situation, because the only way they can tell if it has rabies is they've already got the animal. So I have a lot of enforcement mechanisms, both as the fire chief and as the health officer, to where I can go and obtain administrative warrants to inspect properties. I've had to do that already once here in town with a property where I had a non-compliant property owner who would not allow us in to do a fire inspection. And I had to go to court to get an administrative warrant to make entry into the property. And I did that, and we documented it, and we videotaped it, and had a police escort there. And when we went in, we found that the property was completely up to code. It was just, don't know why, but now we have a very good relationship with that property owner, and we have actually put like a lock box on the front so that we can get into the fire alarm. So it worked out. With health officer, same thing. We ordered a couple buildings vacated, particularly out in the trailer park off of Sunapee Street. There's 2 trailers out there that have been ordered vacated that were already empty, but they're uninhabitable. We have the building posted right up here next to Coronis's, which that was one of the ones very, very early that we posted that is not allowed to be inhabited, and we did board that one up. And that was 87 Sunapee, and that was very early on. It was like right before pandemic stuff hit. So there are a lot of avenues. I also have included a spreadsheet. It's kind of a small print. These are basically all my activities that have risen to any type of more than just a phone call. And I've included pretty much everything I do here. So my assembly permits, fire life safety inspection, fire code enforcement. You can see one property there has very extensive documentation on, right here on Sunapee Street. So this list is not, this spreadsheet's not really all inclusive, okay? There's other things in there that are just a memo to file that have been taken care of with a simple phone call or a site visit. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much how it goes. Now, how does this dovetail with planning and zoning? Well, a lot of times I'll go out with Christina when we go out to check on a junkyard complaint, or we go out to check on a abandoned vehicle complaint, or too many vehicles in a yard complaint. And I'll go out with her, and she'll talk to the property owner. We usually take some pictures of what the property looks like so that it's documented, and then she can go after those types of properties through the junkyard ordinance. So one of the things that I, as the health officer and the fire chief, my primary concern is with occupied buildings when it comes to health and sanitation for people, because it's the health and sanitation of the people. And then the secondary would be the abandoned building. Now, we have quite a few abandoned buildings in town. As long as they're secured and nobody can get into them, there's really nothing more than I can do as far as making them take it down or fix it or whatever. So, that's kind of how it works. But we work really close together. I meet with her pretty much every other day on any type of issue she has going on as far as inspections, things I'm doing as far as inspections that don't really fall into her realm of planning and zoning. Then we work on, when new buildings go up, new houses, I go out with Alan to do the CO inspections on them for occupancy, to make sure that it has the right fire protection in it, smoke detectors are working and all that. So we work together doing that. So it's kind of how the process works.
All right. Christina, anything to add?
Okay, well, yeah, but hopefully I'll have a way smaller knot than he has, and these are my glasses, I apologize. So I wrote out the process that I have for, and Steve and I do work very closely, even if he just sends me something to say, this is happening with me, there's a lot of garbage on this one property, I want you to know about it just in case you get a phone call. Or often I get phone calls that they're really more a Steve phone call than a me phone call. But I still, take down all the notes, and I may go out with him, or I just defer it. I did write my process, and that's the 2 pages. That's where I missed the second page. So you definitely have to get through like 12. And the town council's notes are in the middle, where if you kind of don't get through 5, and I get to where 50% of the recipients kind of respond and really do want to work. And usually when they call me, the ones that will call me, because I write in all the letters, please give me a call so we can discuss this, or if you disagree, or there's reasons why, blah, blah, blah. About half people will call, and then typically I could get a very good rapport. It's usually when I hear nothing, then it goes to council. He has his process. Obviously, I'm in very close contact with town council. Hunter keeps abreast of all of them, whether he asks us directly or we just constantly are CCing him on them. And then obviously I meet with Hunter monthly for him to keep abreast. I go to all court appearances. I did list a number of the types of complaints we get, which some of them can be kind of humorous. There are times where, typically when someone calls me to complain, if they've hit that level, I'm usually on the phone for a little while. If not, numerous times, or emails. We just recently had a complaint that actually, there is no violation. The gentleman has come to my office twice, and I think we've had 6 or 7 emails from him. Steve has done most of the responding because I stated there is no violation. I even then said I would go to the lawyer to make sure I was accurate with that. The lawyer said I was accurate. Steve has continued to engage some, which kudos to him. So even some very minor ones, we typically spend quite a bit of time on that. I do have 30 cases presently, and I brought files, although I'm sure you don't want to see, that are more my significant and higher level ones that are heavily documented, heavily scrutinized, heavily photographed, half go to court. 3 of the highlighted cases are the ones that Hunter mentioned that have gone to fully through the process. They've had the $10,000 liens put on them for the $275 daily penalty, legal fees. I don't know if they put in my part of my salary. I don't think they do, but whatever other fees encompasses that $10,000. And then I'm at the cleanup process. A lot of those are still in the line. And then I even listed the ones that I have worked very closely with people that can be very time consuming, but they have done their due diligence, and we've gotten a number of them. One thing I will state with the process, while I do like to meet people and I get to know the roads a lot better, I do think, and I know people vary on this, but if we could do this with the least amount of pain to the residents, it does greatly benefit the town of Newport overall. Everyone, the look, the thought process, the character. And since I've worked here, people love Newport. People that are new coming to here love it. I love it. People in the area that love it. And I just think that if you did have significant, if it kept getting bigger, or there highlighted significant violations, that does bring down what people think if they don't know Newport well. And Newport's very different than someone might have a perception if they saw a few of these. And even some of the court cases that we have gone all the way to court, some we don't hit the significant liens. They actually end up cleaning it up. There's a 793 South Main that had 2 violations it had 2 homes on the property. Neither of them were permitted for, neither of them were allowed. And we've got, that property has been totally solved. If you go by 793, it's now up for sale. And it's a beautiful 11 acres. It abuts the Sugar River. I'm actually shocked how nice it looks. And then I think there was another one, and I'm losing the exact thing, but that came full circle. So many people are willing to work with me, which is, I find very pleasant. And I think now that I've gotten the ball rolling and I'm much better at this, the whole process, unfortunately, we have a few that haven't done that, the 3 so far. And then I obviously have more in line. And then the smaller ones are, these people have bees. The bees are sometimes on my property. I don't want the bees on my property. You know, these people, I did also give a case of how it was just noticed at 11. I just gave an example from me getting a letter, and Hunter's always CC'd from the town council. I did just give an example of that. And then we will get, there was a tire, someone thought there was a tire violation, or a lot of times people are very upset if their neighbor is cutting a tree on their own property. We get a lot of those. They can take a lot of conversing with them that people are allowed to cut, trees on their own property, within reason. If you cut over an acre, then it's forestry, but that's not the cases I deal with. Steve touched on a lot of these, the rodents. I do get setback violations often. Those don't go to court. Those typically have not gone to court. Those we've solved. Overwhelmingly, the ones in court are the junkyard violations at the state and town level.
Okay. Now, I guess at our last meeting, it came up about this one property on Chandler's Mills Road.
Correct.
Can you guys speak to where we are on that?
That one's on there,
It is
on the list.
yeah.
Steve and I have gone out many times. We've gone out because people thought it was a safety issue potentially, although it is private property, although someone could wander onto it and harm themselves. It's obviously in horrible condition. I actually sent it, I have a file on it, it got sent to legal for the junkyard violation. But then we figured out they're also, I believe, 20 plus in the rears of taxes. And basically at this point, I'm not positive, but I believe it's been abandoned. And the lawyer, and it should be taken not via junkyard, because it would just be a waste of mine and Stephen Whiteley's time, because no one would ever show up. It can be taken via tax
lien.
And I'm not as familiar with that, because that's the tax department. Could be just taken that way outright, because I think the past due taxes, and actually the 20 grand I think was a while ago, I'm assuming it's higher, would be taken that way, which I'm not really sure how that process goes.
But
and then we would go clean, we would have to then go, it would then be our property, and we would have to take the expense of cleaning it up.
Right, but as far as being a junkyard, that would involve, like with any of them, pursuing the current owner to clean it up through the court system.
Which I did.
Okay.
Well, I did start that. We got no response. We actually had a hard time finding the woman. And then that's when I started going into the other offices to see if I could get some updated addresses. And where we realized they were in the rear so much that we can go a much easier route per legal, because they're not gonna clean up if they can't, if the taxes are above, I think, the assessed value.
So this piece of property, I mean, basically would be considered a junkyard.
It absolutely is a junkyard.
But it's
No one-
but it's also abandoned. There are arrears in taxes and the ability of the current property owner to have any interest in cleaning it up, even so it could then be taken for back taxes after cleaning it up, or probably no.
Absolutely. I don't believe there's any contact with the owner anymore. And that's absolutely right. And so we stopped, at least I stopped my proceeding with the junkyard just to prevent legal fees that get. Right. And then, I do believe once we do take it where I think it's where we're at, unfortunately, Newport, it would make that road look stunning, and you would then own that property, but I don't know if it would be any value to then resell it. But that's again.
Right, but, you know, it comes down to, if the town takes it for back taxes, we basically, the town pays to haul away the trash, and then we're left with property which may or may not be buildable on or usable. And however, it cleans up the neighborhood and improves the neighborhood for the residents there.
Or beyond.
And Mr. Chair, I think the point of this report from Christina is to let you know that it's not a topic that's foreign to us. It's one of dozens perhaps that we're dealing with. And when we can resolve the best approach for the town's long-term interest with council, it's gonna pop to the surface here pretty quickly for action.
In general, once you get a complaint, you go out and find, yes, this is a junkyard, and you have to pursue it through legal. How long does a case like that generally take to go through the system?
Well, the process is 95% of the complaints, because I would love to get out more, but I do get stuck more in my office, is a complaint either from an employee of the town, a resident, or a business. So I get it in, then I go and investigate. Some of the complaints, there's probably maybe only 10% of junkyard complaints. They're not junkyards, or shockingly. I've even gone to some and I'm like, oh my, wow, this is a nice looking property. Believe it or not, I've gone to some being like, but then I send a certified letter to the person giving them 30 days. And please call me if you have any questions. And I even am aware sometimes that I know they can't clean it up in 30 days. I have one right now on Turkey Hill. And so if they would call me and they said there's no way for me to clean this up, I'd actually agree. And as long as they're working with me and they proceed and I go up, we extend it to get them to keep, going. If I get correspondence back and they work with me, if they can do it within 30 days, great. I then photograph it, that it's been cleaned up, I add it to the file. If it takes a little longer, I obviously let them. We don't want to pay legal fees. Typically, when I get zero response, is when then after 30 days, I immediately send all the information to town council. At that point, I have taken photos at the beginning of the 30 days, right prior to sending it to town council. I go back out to take new photos so he can make sure that there is no change. But then I send him all my documentation, then he gives 30 days. And then there are about 25% of the people, once he gives notice, which obviously he's held a lot higher standard than me, you will get 25, half the people that will call him and say, I want to work with Christina. And then they bounce back to me. If you get no response, which is the other 50% of Stephen's letters, then him and I go to court, which usually, if we do go to court, we're usually there a couple times.
So a couple months, 2 or 3 months?
Well, it's 60 days to start if no one responds.
Right.
Then we have to set up a court date, and they are full, they're relatively full, so usually it's maybe another 30. So usually 90 if you hear nothing, and then you're in court. But then it kind of, dominoes pretty quickly. They either better get it fixed because the court really says you only have 30 days, or then then you really are delinquent. So once you hit the 90, if no one has tried to do anything, it tumbles pretty quickly after that.
Okay. Any other questions for the board? Mr. Spaulding?
One thing that I guess we can learn about the Chandler's Mills thing is, I did not think you could get past the 3-year time limit for the town to take for taxes. But this property did. That exception, if it is used, should not be allowed to go on as long as it did. If there's a statute that says it can happen, and we go along with that as a community, then we need to find another avenue to solve it. Because right now, we are owed significant money that we can't collect. It is not a buildable lot. You could not put a septic system on it now, because first thing is the Shoreline Protection Act. It's all within it. From the high water mark to the road cannot be any more than 45 feet. Within the 50 feet first setting for the Shoreline Protection Act. So that all being said, we lost. Could we learn from this that we don't let it happen again? Look at others and find out if they are headed similarly. Because there has to be a solution. Now, all of the money that we're out for taxes, and all of the interest that we're out, and all of the aggravation, all of the investigation, all of the court and everything that went through, and then we still got to clean it up. And when you clean it up, you've got all of the stuff that's thrown out of the building, and then you got the porta potty. The mobile home has to go. Where? At whose cost? It's a snowball rolling down the hill. It gets bigger and bigger. So when do we put the brakes on and say, hey, we're going to solve this? Somebody ought to go to Lori and say, look, we'll give you $50 for the property. We need a deed and we'll pay for the paperwork. I bet it would happen.
Hunter?
Got to be a solution. Yeah, just on the topic of tax deeding, we by policy and practice, at least as long as I've been here, try not to take properties from people if there is a viable alternative. We don't want to be the town, we don't want the town to be in the real estate business, so when you become delinquent on your taxes, the staff works with the property owner to set up a payment plan, which will then bring them current with their taxes. As of last week, there are only 2 properties in town that are under our practices and our policies that are eligible for tax deeding. This one and a different one. They're both very strange, kind of difficult. Are they not? Is the owner around? Are the owners not around? Kind of thing. All the rest of the properties that have been delinquent are on payment plans and paying them successfully. That's been our objective, is to not separate people from their properties. So we'll continue to look at these 2 properties. I won't bore you with the complications of the other one. It's a very strange set of circumstances. You have to probably listen to it 2 or 3 times before you'd say, yeah, okay, now I understand, but how in the world did that come along? The statute does not require a town to take properties after 3 years, 2 years and a day. We do hesitate. As you know, when I first got here, we had 25 or 30 years, I don't remember the number at this point. We took, I think we sold almost all of those. We tore down some houses. We really kind of cleaned the backlog out, and we're being quite diligent to make sure that backlog doesn't occur again. But I think Mr. Spaulding is is concerned about precedent, there's no precedent that we would risk by not taking a house on a particular date or a particular month after it's delinquent. We also look at properties to make sure that we don't take properties that would be hazardous to us, a hazardous waste site, or something that would put us in the chain of title, which would then therefore make us obligated to clean up a hazardous waste site, so to speak. Once we own it, we get into the chain of title, and the argument could be made, well, you owned it, so you're now required to pick it up. So we go through a kind of analysis. It's not an automatic process. We stop and we think about it. We talk it through to see if it's a property that's appropriate for the town to own, and can we take the deed and then dispose of the property in a reasonable fashion. And as soon as we can identify a reasonable fashion of disposing of this property, we'll do something with it. But I think that you've heard enough today to understand that it's a difficult property to deal with, because, it's not buildable, so who would you sell the property to? And so on and so forth. So my guess is that if the town took it for a tax deed, we would own it in perpetuity, and clean it up and so on and so forth. So we just want to walk through those processes with our attorneys before we make, decisions on that and blunder into a situation that we might not want to be in. But there'll be activity on it. It doesn't sit much longer.
Jim? The question was asked last meeting, how much are we in? Does your sheet of paper tell you how much?
Yeah, I'm
Does the
sorry.
town manager have an idea of how many dollars were into this?
No, I'm sorry, I missed that question. I would be guessing otherwise, but I could certainly find that out tomorrow.
My feeling is, my assumption is that it's almost irrelevant how far we're into it, because whether we took the property 3 years and 1 day after we could, or we take it tomorrow, we would not get the taxes on it. And the fact is, if we took it 3 years and 1 day when we, as soon as we could, the ability to turn it around so it became taxable property is about nil. So you can say we're losing tax income by not taking it, they're not paying their taxes, but they're not paying their taxes today. They probably wouldn't have been paying them back then, and there's no one, from what I'm hearing, it's hard to sell that property, so the chances of turning it right back around and getting it on the tax rolls is about nil. So I don't think, from what I'm hearing, whether we took it back as soon as we could or we take it tomorrow, the actual amount of taxes coming in would probably not have changed, because we probably could not have gotten it back on the tax roll.
That's not my point, Jeff. My point is, you hit your thumb with a hammer. You learn not to do it again. So my point is, if you had have moved in some years ago at 3 years and 1 day, and then with the same decision, it's not buildable, nobody wants it, etc., you still would have cut your losses. So it doesn't make sense to me to have that kind of problem get that way. I think this is well beyond $20,000. It may be as high as 30. And by the time you're done, you may hit 40. So my point is, you've got to look at these situations and say, okay, we don't want to take it. She's elderly. We'll just kind of sit back. You don't send her a note or anything like that. You just kind of sit back and let it go. When she moves and vacates, then you do something. And my point is that now, will it sit there another 10 years from now, adding to the bill and deteriorating until it falls to the ground? So when is the right time to take the action? Certainly, in this case, sooner than now.
Okay. Sure.
I recently met with an abutter who's willing to purchase the property and clean it. All it needs to do is go to sale.
Say that again.
Yeah, I met with that same fellow, and we'll see. I mean, if you,
There's a butter who wants to purchase their property and clean it, not to rebuild, just to. He wants to clean it,
Which would be the ideal people to
Situation.
talk to in a butter.
In this out of it.
so, it's just pending.
So,
There we go.
It's a pretty strip of land, even though it's not really buildable.
but could we turn it into a park? People could,
It would, if
Build it.
no one wanted to build it, that would be the ideal thing, even if you just, and I think the parks that Newport has put into town have added so much benefit. Actually, it would be a beautiful place if people were walking that road and then stopped and looked at the river from there. Or an abutter could own it, and then you get your money back.
well, get some of the money back.
Yeah.
Barry, you wanna buy it?
Well, no,
In order to be.
It'd be a bigger button.
Back across the way.
yeah.
A little bit.
But anyway, I think that's the best way to go. I mean, it's pretty, it's wonderful, but if you're in a butter, and he wants it just to expand his area, God bless him. That's my point. And let's pursue that as quickly as we can.
All right, we're not gonna solve this tonight.
Bert? Yes, we are.
Okay.
He's not an abutter. The abutter, the only abutter that lot has is Newport. Because
Oh, okay.
the shoreline of the
Shoreline.
property along there is owned, but he's across the road. And if he is willing to buy it, then I should think that someone would sit down and get every dollar you can out, because the longer you hold it, the deeper the hole gets. And he would be doing it to benefit the community, because he's not gonna live there. He has the property, a large lot across the road.
All right. So we'll see where we go with this. Okay. It's on our radar.
there's no reason for us to hesitate. We've taken 25 or 27 properties so far, so
Yeah.
this one will be just another.
Anything else on the enforcement update? Okay, thank you, Chief, for coming in.
Welcome.
Okay,
Thanks.
conservation,
I know, I'm staying, don't worry, Barry.
Conservation Commission activities.
Okay, I did want to bring to the board's attention the fact that our Conservation Commission, which we don't often hear too much about, we've got a real active group that are forging ahead with a lot of areas about work that the Conservation Commission should be doing. And I want to bring the board up to speed with some of it, and I'll talk more about it as we move forward with some of the projects. The first thing I wanted to mention is that this group, we've got Linda Dennis, Don Shagan, Larry Shizzle, Hunter Hubert, and myself, and Herb's been on it for a year in my absence. My own benefit. But anyway, this group is really anxious to get out and do the responsible work of dealing with conservation lands, wetlands, environmental factors. So one of the first things that they have done is undertaken a review of the master plan. Is it the planning board that's in charge of the master plan?
Yes.
And as we began to look at it, and Christina has done yeoman's work with it in terms of pulling out what our present master plan has in regards to the work that needs to be done with the Conservation Committee. It's extensive.
It's very expensive. It's a
Yeah,
high
this is
one.
only, what, first 25, 29 pages, and she's
Well,
pulled out a lot more.
It's about a quarter of the master plan, and half of it was conservation. I've got to get through the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's very extensive.
Yeah, a lot of good information in here, but part of what we gleaned from this is the fact that the master plan states that a natural resources inventory is needed, and that comes out of RSA 36A:1. So we are pursuing finding out about how to carry out a natural resources inventory. What are the aspects that we want to include in that inventory? Because it really needs to be officially a part of the master plan. And so it isn't going to come without some expense. Right now, we're sort of estimating somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 to start the process for this, and it's an extensive report. We're also looking at who would carry it out. They had a meeting, were you there when they met with Millwood? Yeah, yeah. And he, what is he, a professor and college?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it probably doesn't take much, but I was overwhelmed by and shocked on how imperative the master plan is to every other aspect of town or city government.
Zoning and
I didn't realize
planning,
the effect on zoning and planning, having the NRI in place. And then we are a developed town like this. There are a few that don't have a much smaller government, but with a very good infrastructure and government, we've got to be the only New Hampshire town that does not have an NRI. This is mature.
What is the NRI?
Natural Resources Inventory. Yeah, and it includes a variety of issues, which I'll talk to the board later on when we get more information about what's going to be a part of the NRI. But we are going to move ahead with this. I've talked to Hunter a little bit about it. Christina's really helping to move this process ahead. And so we're going to be having further meetings about this. Well, also as a group, I'm excited about this whole thing. That we're going to sit down next meeting and talk about our priorities. What are the things that we should be doing based on rules and procedures, based on the master plan? What are the big projects? And so I'll come back to you later on to talk about that.
Just for people who may be interested, when does the Conservation Commission meet?
Third Wednesday?
Yes, third Wednesday at 6:30.
6:30 here.
Right here.
Yeah.
So people can either come down and listen or participate,
We'd
or
love, yeah.
connect to NCTV?
Yeah. Yes. It was interesting, the last meeting, Larry was out in St. Louis, but he zoomed in to be a part of the process. They're really taking hold of this. I mean, we've got Linda, who brings a historical perspective to it, and we've got these three gentlemen who really, really want to get things done. For instance, and I'll end after this, on Wednesday of this week at 9 o'clock, we're meeting with an environmental officer, and I had his name and everything on my phone, but I left my phone at home. At 9 o'clock, we're going to be at the courts, basketball courts, near the high school, and we're going to take a walk out along that boardwalk, and we're going to identify the invasive species that we have there and talk to them about what can be done to abate that issue. They also, very interested in doing some work, and they've said, we'll do it on the boardwalk area so that it's much safer than it is right now. So, very active group, and we're going to be pursuing ahead. We're also going to be asking for a line item in the budget in the coming year, small amount, $1,200, just so we could have an ongoing budget to pay for things like stakes and fertilization, things of that nature.
Invasive species mitigation.
Yeah.
Now, the Conservation Commission has their own funds, correct?
We have $35,000 that came from a timber sale, and the discussion that we had indicated that was to be used for land purchase. I need to investigate that more with Hunter, because if we can use that money, we had talked about using the money for the trees when we put the trees.
There was a suggestion that they pay for the trees on the town green, which was kind of nice that didn't happen.
The town stepped in and helped us with
Now, was
that.
that the timber sale from the town forest?
When they had the blowdown. Yeah.
Right, and I thought, the thought then was that on a regular basis, sections of the forest should be, I guess...
Harvested.
Right. Do you have a frequency for, it's
That-
something, you look at the frequency and, what section should be next and such.
That's what this report would help us with, right there, because it takes a global perspective of resources that the town has. Okay, and, we've got a lot of good things here. We just need to make sure we know where they are and we know how to protect them
Yeah.
through that process.
Is there a town forester?
There is a town forester, and I'm forgetting his name, to tell you the truth. However, he's working very closely, I could go back to my email. He's working very closely with Todd Cartier. And we're actually coming up with some nice signage for the Gilman Pond. And actually, Todd comes in often and presents to the board, and they work in tandem with the,
Yeah.
like the.
These are
plan.
I should have made copies, but
That's all right.
these are there's one, I think this is the one that Todd favors. We
Gilman
did
Pond Town Forest
Gilman Pond Town Forest,
in Unity, right?
yeah, well, we don't bring that out.
Right. You're talking about.
We own it.
Yeah, we own it.
We own it, that's a big part of,
Signage.
no, it's a big part of what we want to protect.
Right.
That's there.
Hunter, a quick question before we get too far. The town forester question, did we not just get a resignation letter from him?
I believe we may have. Yeah. But we do rely on contracted foresters
Right.
to assist with that process. And we came up with a plan for the management of the forests around Gilman Pond. And we've identified a number of invasive or less interesting species that we're going to be cutting out. And there's some timber, and he's helping come up with a schedule of cuts so that you can periodically cut timber down in that area. So I would, at some point, I believe the Conservation Commission will work towards the same sort of scheduled
Yes.
maintenance or cutting out of the town forest up here.
And we've got some other really good ideas, some came directly from Hunter.
And one of them's coming tomorrow. Because we've got you guys pegged for, we got a grant some time ago about putting in new signage for the town's trail systems.
Yeah.
And so we've got all the signs, they're all here, and we need some help installing them. And
We'll do it.
Mr. Connell sort of suggested that they would be willing to help out. We don't expect you to do all of it, because there's lots of it.
Well, I know people who will help us.
Yeah, but that's exactly the kind of interaction and interactivity that we can rely on.
And we're, at the next meeting, I'm going to bring up the process of Tree City, and identifying us as a Tree City, what goes into that, what are the benefits of that.
Tree City.
I believe, no, the only one I know that's in the area is Hanover.
Hartford.
And Hartford. You did that one, Tree City there. So, we're looking at a lot of very interesting things, and, we got some active people. We'll be asking others to help with the process, so.
So what do you got planned for Arbor Day?
Good question.
Good question. So we better put that on the
Yeah,
agenda.
that's an interesting question. In the past, some of the groups that I've been affiliated with use that day to have plant sales.
Yeah, I'll write that down.
Or at least use it as a day for making people aware of natural.
Plus, we should get a tie-in with the group that does all the flower and plant stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of
We should
opportunities.
be working together with that. So, I just wanted to make you folks aware of that and let you know that eventually we're going to be looking for some money.
Sounds like it's come back to life.
Nice job.
Boy, it is. It is. I'm excited, and I know you are too.
I find
Yeah.
it very
Yeah.
interesting, and I think, I'm not good with the words, but if we could even show snippets of the presentation, because I was floored on how the NRI is used for building blocks for your zoning laws. It's used for building blocks on how you do your planning, which I didn't even realize how they correlated. I found it so interesting, and now I'm more aware of me verbally expressing that to you. I couldn't do it justice, but it was shocking. And I do know people that are redoing their Claremont, they already had an NRI they just redid one by the gentleman that gave the presentation, and now.
And Sonope's looking.
Yeah, for 29,000.
They're in the upper, we looked at that the other night, Jeff, the upper valley.
At the regional planning.
Yeah. And I think Sonope's adding theirs for like upgrading. I know New London is paying, and I don't know the exact fees, but just to look at their wetlands, just to get an updated, and I do think we've actually had some potential wetlands violations on Johns Ark Highway. I think we could I think we have way more wetlands than are registered.
Yeah.
Which might be something, but like 5 years down the line, we could put a little money in the pot to just look at our wetlands. Just a thought.
So, very active. Good. We want to push ahead. Now I want to keep you folks aware of what's going on.
Nice job. All right, thank you. All right. Wastewater treatment facility letter of support. This is a letter, I guess,
Thank you, Mr.
Regional Development is looking for, Hunter?
No, actually, this is a letter that, as you know, we're pursuing grant funding from Rural Development,
Right.
USRDA, for a wastewater treatment plant. The funding is rather significant. Let me check and see who's listening. Nobody. So we're actually hoping that this will become the largest grant award in New Hampshire for our wastewater treatment plant.
I mean, what we are looking at, since we first did what we were told was required at the wastewater treatment plant for $3 million and it didn't work. We then had to sue the contractors to get our money back.
Right.
The cost through inflation plus also changing the design so it's more flexible for new requirements coming down the road, et cetera, the price of meeting the EPA requirement at our wastewater treatment facility is ballooned to about $25 million. And you pursued a lot of grants. I think the town at one point had committed to bonding up to $7 or $8 million.
Yes.
And such. And rural development in one Zoom meeting or something, basically stepped forward and said they could probably kick in up to about 10 million. But the thing is, there's a certain amount that the town has the ability to bond for. There's other grants and such from the state, Northern Borders or whatever, and other resources, but there's that gap.
Right.
That rural development basically said they could look at meeting.
Right. So this letter, in exchange for them supporting us, they want to make sure that we're going to follow through. If they come up with a critical piece of the funding stack, they want to know that we're committed to the project. We're going to do our share to help educate the community about the importance of the project and a favorable vote. We're going to put it before town meeting, a warrant article and all that sort of stuff. So I've drafted this letter. I sent a copy of this to them. They said this letter is fine. But it's just an expression of your commitment to do our part if they do their part.
Let's see, we have this letter. And this is the letter,
It appeared to be an older letter.
No, I wrote it the other
June 20th, 2022.
Oh, okay, then I was looking at different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, what it states, once you get through some of the boilerplates, bullet points are the town is fully committed to sponsor and support a warrant article for our town meeting in May of 2023 that would seek to authorize the necessary funds/bonding to fund the town's share of the costs related to this project. The town's leadership, town manager, and select board, as well as pertinent staff, pledge to take whatever steps are necessary to help educate the public about this project. Design materials will be put on display in our town office for the benefit of the public as they visit our offices throughout the year. We will post renovation plans and related budgets on the town's social media outlets, as well as consider at least one mass mailing to area residents. The town will host several public meetings, hearings, forums, wherein with the help of our consulting engineers, the state, etc., town taxpayers will learn about this project and the associated costs. These presentations will be recorded and offered via the town's website for future viewing by residents. The town will sponsor several informational articles in local newspapers, letters, to help educate the public about this project, in closing, etc., etc. So if we agree to this, I think that means someone here can write an article for the Newport Times at some point.
Yeah, as information comes available, that would be appropriate that we give
Any,
public updates.
Yep.
I mean, basically, we're under an EPA letter with a deadline, I think, of 2024 right now sometime,
It's being
in order to
rewritten.
bring this facility online, which would probably be very, tight. But the intent, we basically have a requirement to try to meet this requirement from the EPA.
Good.
And we basically are obligated to bring this to our citizens. Any comments, questions, concerns? It's a massive undertaking. It's an expensive undertaking.
Well, I think it's good that we've got someone who's, and other people that are finding money the best they possibly can.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, yeah.
I will say in that Zoom meeting or whatever platform I was on, I did express, just exactly what a stretch this is for the sewer users in Newport.
Yep.
And it is a stretch. So do you need a motion from us to,
Well, a motion would probably be in order just to make sure it's memorialized on the record, but what I really need for you all to do is sign it tonight, because I gotta get it back to them tomorrow.
does anyone want to make a motion that we
Approve of and sign the
approve of and sign this letter of intent on our part?
So moved. Second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? All right, somewhere in this red folder is the original that we can all sign, so Hunter can get that check for $10 million or whatever.
Let's not lose it.
All right,
That we already did anyway.
all right, Board of Selectmen retreat. This Saturday, we're meeting here at 9 a.m. to basically have a retreat, do some planning and direction for the rest of the year. The 5 items we brought up were the rec center, community center, town finance update plan, financial issues, short and long term, priorities for the upcoming years, CIP, and employee retention, staff development, employment salaries. Any priorities on these or such, or anything, any more detail we want to try to get ahead of time?
Yeah.
Jim?
I think that was my thoughts.
Yeah. Keith? Any priorities, anything we want? Hunter, you're going to have for us a copy of your wall, your projects that are going out? and
Yeah,
so
we're gonna basically send you out our work plan.
Yeah.
This is, the CIP, or something else. CIP. Yeah, something. Pardon?
Water and sewer rates.
Yeah, water and sewer rates, I'm sorry. I knew there was something else, forget.
Yeah.
And we'll create an agenda for the day and we'll work through the agenda.
Okay.
It's a pretty heavy agenda for 2 or 3 hours.
It is, and it could be we find we may need another separate meeting to address 1 or 2 of those items.
Sure.
Such, so. So that's 9 a.m. here, you'll have it posted?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on this? All right. And moving on to action items, state aid grants, certification of authorized representative. This is where we basically authorize you to, this is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Street acceptance of work?
Right, we're applying for some grants that will reimburse us for some of those expenses, and they need to have on record who's authorized as a signatory.
Does anyone want to make a motion to certify that the town manager is authorized and directed to sign all documents, et cetera, for the town of Newport.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
That's relative to this grant, correct?
That's just for this grant, or what's the question?
Well, certainly for this grant, but it would be helpful, and we do have some older votes, if you would reiterate that, and for this grant and/or others, because these things are coming fast and furious, and we're getting deadlines that, people literally send us emails today and say, by 5 o'clock tomorrow, we have to have this. So it would be helpful if you can expand that authorization, or to reiterate, confirm, for all such grants and gifts and things of that nature.
Kind of like a blanket permission.
Yes, we did do it.
Yeah, we did.
We had one
Doesn't a couple times.
some time ago, but it doesn't hurt to have more than one, because they're just coming fast and furious. And so-
Herb, you want to change your motion?
No, I seconded the motion.
Oh, who made it? I forget.
I did.
All right. You want to modify your motion, or?
Yeah, I would also add to the motion that this serve as a blanket coverage for signage in regards to grants to the town manager.
That'll do it. In addition to what we already got, that'll help.
And Herb seconds that. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right, Conservation Commission resignation. We have a resignation from Ken Dennis. Do I have a motion to accept his resignation with regrets and thank him for his service?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we have a planning board resignation of David Kibbe. Do I have a motion to accept his resignation with regrets and gratitude for his service?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 And the one I skipped over, the annual appointments to boards and commissions. Back of your package, just before the back of your package, a couple pages back, we have, for appointment, we have 2 people who expressed a desire to be reappointed to the Airport Advisory Board. Harold Yanofsky and John Merriman, for full 3-year terms, with their terms to expire June 30th of 2025. Do I have a motion to appoint those 2 individuals?
So moved.
Second that.
And a second, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right. We have an individual that's expressed a desire to be reappointed to the Heritage Commission. Do I have a motion to appoint Jacqueline Cody as a full member for 3 years to the Heritage Commission, with her term expiring end of June 2025?
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? And we have an individual expressing a desire to be reappointed to the Planning Board, Kenneth Merrill, as a full member for 3 years, with his term to expire June 30th of 2025.
So moved again.
Second.
And second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. And to the Rec Advisory Council, we have 2 individuals who'd expressed a desire to be renewed there. Nina Leonard, is that right? And Leonard, yeah, and Agatha Baraka,
So moved.
for 3 years, with their term to expire June of 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. And let me just say,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
there's no position noted. Would that be an alternate? For the last 2, Nina and Agatha.
it's an,
I believe those 2 were full members.
Well, they would be full members.
yeah, they would make them full members, whether they wanted to or not. Also, let me just state that with those reappointments and the resignations we have, Right now, the Airport Advisory Board has 2 openings for alternate members. The Capital Improvement Program, who's in charge of that? Up here. That you? Oh, that's, okay, Jim. There's openings for 3 at-large members with terms to expire in 1, 2, or 3 years. There is a opening for a member of the Budget Advisory Committee with a term expiring in 3 years, and that would have to be appointed by the Budget Advisory Committee. And we have a town staff representative with a term to expire in June 2024, and I guess that one normally defaults to the Finance Director. Conservation Commission, which we just heard a great report of how active they are. They have an opening for a full member with a term to expire in 3 years, and the opportunity for 2 alternate members with terms to expire in 2 years. The Heritage Commission has openings for 2 full members, one with a term to expire in 1 year and another one in 3 years, and it's a position for an alternate member with a term to expire in 1 year. The Monuments and Memorials Committee, okay, that has pretty much needs to have a representative appointed by the Heritage Commission, and then it also gets a representative from Cemetery Buildings and Grounds, I guess, when they meet. Planning Board has openings for 2 full members, one to expire in 1 year, the other one in 2 years, and a spot for an alternate member to expire in 3 years. The Rec Advisory Council has an opening for a regular member with a term to expire in 2 years, and an opportunity for a student representative. If there's a high school student interested in serving on the Rec Advisory Committee, that's a term that would expire after 1 year. The Zoning Board of Adjustment has an opening for 1 full member with a term to expire in 3 years, and openings for 2 alternate members to expire in either 2 or 3 years. Alternate members are important because when a full member of a committee cannot make it, the intent is to try to seat an alternate member in their spot, so we have as full a board as possible at these meetings. We've had issues in the past where, because we're not filling our boards, we're not meeting, I guess, our obligation to provide, I guess, a speedy answer to citizens that come forward for resolutions from these boards, particularly the zoning and planning boards. A lot of times these citizens and businesses need approval from these boards before they can move ahead with their, whatever their project is, and it's important for our community to try and, have a full board for our meetings so that we can, keep them moving forward, and it sort of helps meet our obligation. If we're going to have planning and zoning requirements, we have an obligation to try to meet with the people that come before them in a timely fashion. So I encourage people to find out more about these boards by calling the town manager's office or calling one of our selectmen here, or asking us about them and finding out more about them, or even, tuning in or pulling up on NCTV or wherever and watching an old meeting and see what goes on, what happens, and see if you're interested in being on one of these boards. Because, Newport works best, when we, all work together, and it's the volunteers that do it.
I'd also like to add that oftentimes the developers coming before the zoning or planning boards travel from a fair distance away.
Right.
And to come and not be able to be heard is not a good appearance for the town.
No, especially when they're looking to make an investment in our community.
Yes.
Mr. Spalding.
I offered to Christine, now with the second resignation on the planning board, that I would move, with your consent, from the alternate position to the board. And I also would move back to alternate if you fill the spots.
Okay, at this point, you're a full member, but you're saying...
No, I'm an alternate.
You're an alternate?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I would move to full. If you fill, I would go back. But there is a problem that has come to light, that being on both zoning and planning, Winslow, the court case, kicks in with the juror must be as impartial as a lot of humanity will admit. So if I sit on one on planning, I can't sit on that same case on zoning. So it's important that we fill the two positions for people who can sit on the zoning board. You find somebody for the zoning board, I'll go back or go away. Either.
Yeah. Right.
It's a bit of overkill.
Yeah.
So it is your choice. Right now, I'm as alternate on the planning board.
Okay. I'm not gonna make that choice right now, but thank you for volunteering.
Well, as an alternate, his status will be, he is a member if you show up and there aren't enough people there, or if even just one. Ray Kibbe is a classic example. I mean, he used to come, sit over there, and then almost every meeting, he moved into a chair. So right now, as an alternate, you'll still be able to be seated as a member.
The only difference is they have to vote me in. That's the only difference.
And in order to sit on any one given case, he would have to be impartial and not have heard it on the other side.
Well, I appreciate his comments in regards to that, yeah.
And also, if the case comes back for a rehearing, at the planning board, then do you appoint the person who sat on the original? So, whatever your
That's a
pleasure.
good question.
Enjoy having you on the boards.
Well, depends.
All right, moving on. I have a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, 2L, legal communication, and RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2E, litigation. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Herb?
Aye.
Jim? Aye. Keith?
Aye.
Barry? Aye. And I'll vote yes. And who do we need? We need Hunter here and,
That's it. Nobody else. Sorry. It's not that complicated.
okay.
Good evening, Paul.
Good to see you, Paul.
Steve, Paul.
Nice of you to stick around for the meeting.
Well, I had answers for questions that nobody asked, so
Oh,
we're all right.
do you want to give us the answers anyway? Or do you want to wait until we ask the question?
He'll save him for the next meeting.
I'll wait for questions.
Okay.
I don't want to give it. Hey, good night.
I want to know.
We didn't know what. Anyone want a copy of